Well, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer, and I'm doing a mini podcast here with Kevin about a topic I found really interesting. It was on a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast, X2 Drop, and I just want to do it here because I have a lot of thoughts on it on myself. And that is, can Yu-Gi-Oh become the biggest TCG, the most popular TCG in the country? Not the world, because I think that's kind of a stretch, but here in the States, because its biggest competition, of course, is going to be Pokemon and Magic. And Magic, I'm pretty sure, is the most popular. Although it could be Pokemon too. I'm sure they compete pretty closely.
Pokemon as a commodity right now, I don't know. I'm not sure how much of the current Pokemon card surge has to do with the competitive landscape of the game, as much as like the collecting aspect. Because now they're, if anything, it's going to get commodified. It's what's driving it forward is the ability to make money off your old Pokemon cards.
Yeah, which I think is really interesting because they do not reprint cards. If it's in a set, which you can't even use those cards, because I found out they have a rotating set where there's 6 sets in rotation at a time, and then there's some mini sets apparently. So the game, to me,
the competitive
that's got to be really tough to be a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player. I know that's a little cheaper. I know you can get like competitive decks for like $90 when you can't even get a meta staple for $90 in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
And I do think that's part of the problem as well, because I think Pokemon does it right, where the valuable cards aren't necessarily the ones that you can play, or they've already been rotated past for many years now. But because it was so rare, like that's where the value's driven in, not the cards that you need to play at a tournament. So
I actually really do like that setup, and I think if Yu-Gi-Oh split it more into that, it would be more inviting for, I don't know. I feel like you get people in originally by wanting to collect the cards, which is how you catch pretty much all kids.
80% of the player base for the most. No one really goes into a card game without the enamor of or the wanting of shiny cards.
Yeah, exactly. The endorphins you get in your brain from seeing the bright shiny colors.
And that's the sad part about Yu-Gi-Oh! I'll say when it comes to, because we'll now look at the actual card design between all of them. There are times where I will sit down and just shuffle through my Yu-Gi-Oh cards because I think they look really cool, and I think they have the best card design in all of the TCGs. I find Magic's to be boring. Yeah, they don't really have, like, there's Ghost Rares in Yu-Gi-Oh, and I think Ghost Rares are like some of the most beautiful trading cards in the world.
Yu-Gi-Oh cards just look cool.
And I think the Rush Duel cards look really good too. I think its best competition is Dragon Ball Super when it comes to card design, just looking at it, because their focus is on the art of it, not really the stats. But I think Yu-Gi-Oh will always be tremendously more popular than the Dragon Ball Super game because it's way too simple in DBS. It doesn't interest me. I just love the way the cards look, because I'm sure a lot of people do. And I think that's kind of the sentiment that I've heard around the community, whatever you want to call it, that the game's just kind of boring, and you're definitely not going to get that with Yu-Gi-Oh! And you kind of alluded to it just a moment ago in that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is complicated, and there are cards that become broken 15 years after their release. And that may sound horrible, and it can be, but I also think that's part of the best thing of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that there are cards that you can find use of for a very long time, and that's something that's dead in both Magic and Pokemon, but it's also, I guess, part of the worst, because if you're a new player trying to get into it, the first game you're going to go to is Pokemon. I mean, their trading card game has not changed at all, and the excitement really comes from the new sets. Yeah. It's about energy and Pokemon. I mean, the way people explain it and the way I've seen it is you can pick it up and learn how to play it in a week, and you will never fall out of the meta, whatever you want to call it. For Yu-Gi-Oh, the nuance is you need to know what's going on at all times.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets in the issues. So how do you feel about that before I go into kind of my next points here?
I think if you did a harder cycle, like if it might have to get to the point where it's like if we either simplify to the game to a point where we don't have all these different varieties of monsters. Like I feel like we should, to make the game more, to lower the barrier of entry, you definitely need fewer different kinds of monsters that you'll have to learn in order to be able to win. And so if we get to the point where it's every time there's a new format, you can only use one kind of extra deck monster. That new format's extra deck monster, or something like that. But I definitely don't think that people who have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Since 2002, just because they have a benefit of being born in 2002 and have the benefit of knowing what every single set has done and like being able to combine all of those kinds of cards, it's definitely not fair to like a kid who was born 10 years ago who wants to try and get into trading card games. Pokemon's gonna be way more easy for him to get into if he wants to try and play. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to be almost impossible to learn at this point.
Yeah, combos go on for at least 7 minutes. I did a combo tutorial yesterday for heroes, and each of them were 7 to 8 minutes just to go to your end board. But I don't think there will ever not be an audience for that. And I think the solution is actually quite obvious. We know how popular GOAT format is. It is a community-driven format that people play religiously and stay away from the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sometimes just to play it. Konami needs to recognize that.
Just co-op that
you
very
can
popular
teach
style, yeah.
The great thing is you can teach someone GOAT format in about a month. At that point, you can learn all of the most nuanced interactions because there's no quick effects back in the day.
Even then, if Konami is willing to co-opt it in that way, you can make better resources available to players. If that is something that Konami is officially willing to, like, if that's a rule set that they're officially willing to conduct tournaments with and stuff like that, that is going to be what separates, or that's what's going to allow like more support to be given to that kind of format and making it more widely accessible and available for people to know about.
How cool would it be to have sanction events during a YCS just for GOAT format? And on top of that, if they reprinted old sets but gave them higher rarity bumps, like a ghost rare, what's it called? The charity pot of greed. If you like a ghost rare for that, or the graceful charity. All these really cool cards. If they had these awesome printings, that attracts collectors, and that would attract people who play GOAT format too, and just support it because that's the thing is, if you can get someone into GOAT format and they like it, and they're like, this is a little simple, I say, well, buddy, do I have something for you? Here's the rest of the 20 years that this game has been out. But I think GOAT format in and of itself is a good trading card game and is reminiscent of the Pokemons and, well, maybe not Magic. Magic is a little more complicated. So,
wow, I would really love to just play some regular GOAT format Yu-Gi-Oh, man. That makes me really, really excited.
And you can, but why isn't Konami doing it? That's not the only thing preventing them from becoming the most popular trading card game in the world, but I think it starts there. So that's part
GOAT format Yu-Gi-Oh makes me really happy to think about. Like, I'm having a real big nostalgia kick on it right now.
Absolutely, like setting Sangan, the whole
man.
There's many other problems, as we know, and
yeah,
I talked about it in the beginning too. You can't have cards in sets that every competitive player wants. You can't print Lightning Storm, Triple Tactical Talents, and there's Forbidden Droplets and have them not be easily accessible. I should not have to pay $900 for a meta staple because I want to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! I really, really do. I'm not spending $1,000 to play a competitive deck like that, a top tier deck. I'll play Rogue, and that's always kind of the cool option in Yu-Gi-Oh! But no, if I really wanted to get into competitive Pokemon, I could sit down and spend probably max $150 and compete with any player in the world. Not saying I'll have the skills to do that, and that's part of the game too.
That's what the allure should be. Not like if you are skilled enough with the cards that everyone can use, that is what determines whether or not you are a good player, in my opinion. So, like, that's what I feel like all these obviously in an ideal world, that's what we would do, and I think Pokemon has mastered that to a degree. Like, they release the same sets, different designs of the same Pokemon, and it's cool. Like, people collect those cards still, and the competitive landscape remains largely unchanged.
The expensive cards in Pokemon are collector's items. They're not the cards that will win you tournaments or the best cards of the format, as far as I know. That's the issue, man. We need to get like 10,000 Dragon came out in one of the sets. It was a ghost rare. It was the 10,000th design Yu-Gi-Oh card, and it's like $5,000. Yes, do that. Don't make Lightning Storm like a 1 per case thing, because you're going to screw most of your player base who is dedicated to trying to play the game. And then on top of that, you spend over a year not reprinting either of them. Access Code Talker has not had a reprint. Triple Tactical Talents, Forbidden Droplets, and Lightning Storm, none of them. They're not in any sets. Magician Souls is still like $80, and that came out a long time ago. There's too many expensive cards for archetypes that everybody wants access to. And then on top of that, they have structure decks, which are absolutely meaningless and just kind of carry it along. So they're not getting the right idea. They did it with Solomon Greats, and it was one of the best formats. Everybody had access to a deck that you could play, and you could put the more expensive cards in there if you felt like, would help you along. But we haven't had that in a tremendously long time. There's a machine structure deck coming out that's not going to be good. Ice Barriers was the laughingstock of the world, and so on and so forth, and none of them show any promise. Like, they're kind of getting away from that, and that is the core issue with Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, they don't really understand. And I'll close on my thoughts on this here, is that they need to understand who's playing the game, and there's always going to be a balance between business and player base, right? Like, we would like to have the cards for free, and they would like us to spend the most amount of money as possible. There needs to be somewhere in the middle for that.
That's what I'm saying. So there needs to be more of an attempt on Konami to meet the players halfway, man, because you cannot keep taxing them like this. For as often
and then
as
banning the cards.
Exactly.
By the way.
That's what I was about to say. For as often as they can completely uproot the competitive landscape of the game, you need to make it so it's not as difficult, because people don't like. Bro, most people do not have $1,000 to spend on Yu-Gi-Oh cards, man. That's crazy. So like, that is why most people can't get into playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Hence why Yu-Gi-Oh cannot be the best or most popular trading card game in the world.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you were to play Heroes and you were to learn them to their T, like every combo route tree there possibly is, and you get good at it and you play in your little friend player base, and then you're like, all right, man, I've play tested this for a month now. I think I've got this down. And you go to a YCS,
and you get whacked.
You will get absolutely destroyed.
You get whacked.
Yeah, so that, I don't know. So I think there needs to be more formats and maybe rotational sets. Maybe, I don't know. There's also,
I think it would definitely help as far as like because they do this stuff anyway with the ban list, you know what I mean? Like, there are eras that are defined simply by what is and is not on the ban list.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, man, stop making players wait on bated breath and just cycle the cards out so they know when to expect these cards to need certain types of cards during certain types of competitive seasons or whatever, man. It's not hard, and it's literally, it just takes more effort, man, because it doesn't really cost them money to be like, yo, don't use these cards if you want to play on our official tournaments. Use these cards. They just have to say it in a different way, dude.
Yeah.
The ban list system is insane.
It is, and you just said it here at the end of your sentence, in that they do not stream Yu-Gi-Oh! But once every few months. There is an remote duel extravaganza every once in a while, and they're very well presented. I think they do a great job of life points, games won, card highlights, all of that. But they, like, dude, if you go on Twitch, you will see a Pokemon tournament going on from their official TCG website, by the way, where they play the game, like, almost every day.
They don't reach out enough to the players.
Twitch is free,
Yeah,
dude. Like, you do not pay for Twitch. Pro Play Tour games should not get more consistent views than Yu-Gi-Oh! On a daily basis, because they stream, like, Tuesday night Yu-Gi-Oh!, Friday night Yu-Gi-Oh!, and people have their eyes on the game.
There's an army of people who are streaming this game. So it's not even like you have to reach very far to get people who are willing to stream under the Konami name. You know?
There are companies
It's
out-
so easy.
Yeah, there are non-sanctioned Konami events going on that people pay legitimate attention to because they don't have access to it enough. They're just like waiting for Konami to come out with something, and they just cancel Worlds again. We haven't had YCS. I think they're trying an online one. So that, I think that's also a really, really big issue. And they don't have their own playing game platform. They have Duel Links, and that's been successful for them, I understand. But if you don't want to play Caveman Yu-Gi-Oh! And you want to play the game as it currently stands, I have to I have to download software that they did not create.
It's unlicensed.
And that they do not recognize.
It's not licensed. Yeah.
How can that be? How can you do legitimately? How can you do that?
Yeah, because like I don't know, because it's like it doesn't even make sense from a greed perspective, man. It's like you're not even being greedy the right way.
Imagine if you could buy a pack in real life, scan it, and it'll go.
Exactly.
How easy? I will pay for product if it gets to go into the game. If Dueling Network, YGO Pro would disappear in a day if Konami was just like, yeah, we're doing it ourselves, and these are officially Konami sanctioned events. You could solve so many of your issues by having weekly tournaments because you don't need judges because all the rules are automatically implemented into your app, and then you just have daily tournaments where people play Yu-Gi-Oh all the time.
You could just use the internet to kind of unify your player base and kind of get everyone on the same page. It's just, and I don't. It literally just takes effort, and that's probably why Konami doesn't do it.
They have allowed the secondary market to run their business, and they don't benefit from it at all.
It doesn't.
That is perhaps their worst.
They must
trope.
They simply just don't. My only answer to it, and I think we've talked about this before, is just they don't really care. Like they don't really care about the money they are missing out on Yu-Gi-Oh.
But why do you think that
It's
is?
just, I don't know. We would really have to talk to someone from the company about it, because
I truly don't understand why you'd be missing out on all of these very
obvious kind of avenues to make more money and just ignore them.
So we'll take this back to the main question. Is it physically possible for Yu-Gi-Oh! To become the most popular TCG in the country?
Feasibly, yeah, but like not in its current state in any form or fashion.
You think you don't think it will ever happen? You think they'll
You would have to actively upend the current structure of the game. Yeah.
I think it's possible as well because I think it is the most fun game.
I think Yu-Gi-Oh is incredibly fun. I think Yu-Gi-Oh is it I think the best games kind of bring out who you are as a person, kind of like reflect who you are in like the style of how you play and stuff like that. And Yu-Gi-Oh is one of those games.
And they have so many cards, and there's so many different ways to play the game. They just need to make it more accessible and more fun. And hopefully they end up doing it. I don't know. But let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Can Yu-Gi-Oh become the biggest TCG in the world? Other than that, that's going to do it for today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.